not your birthday, so I did not get a card. But it doesn't matter, 'cause I did not get that far. Inside your house, should have asked you to come out. Instead, I stared at my phone, waiting around. It's been a while since I have attempted to.
Welcome to Emo Trash,
Welcome to
episode
Emo
2,
Trash,
take
everybody.
2. I'm
Yeah.
sorry you missed our great jokes from the first opening.
Yeah, great jokes, real bangers.
It was
you guys,
really sad.
maybe it'll. I was about to say maybe it'll be in like the bloopers, but there won't be any bloopers because we were.
We did record it.
The only blooper was Jeremy not recording.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The only blooper was me going, oh, I'm an idiot.
The only blooper is Jeremy's life.
Oh, God, you got me.
I'm sorry.
So today we're going to talk about two artists.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about an artist and an album.
Yeah.
This is the second time I've said that, the second time I've messed it up. So we're going to look into Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties. A bit of an introduction of why we're doing this as all one artist. Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties is the side project of Dan Soupy Campbell, the lead singer of the Wonder Years. Basically, he wrote all these songs just to help practice guitar. He wrote a few
Is that
songs.
why he wrote them?
That's
Is that
why
his
he started
excuse?
writing. That's why he started writing We Don't Have Each Other. They were just songs for him, and then he played them for Ace Enders, who you might know is the lead singer of The Early November.
Oh wow!
And he was like, "These are amazing. We have to record these."
When did you ever listen to the Early November?
No.
You should listen to the Early November.
I could see you liking them.
Yeah,
But
Emo
basically, we're talking to them about it as one artist because all of it tells a story. It's the story of Aaron West, and that story is encapsulated so far through the album We Don't Have Each Other, the following EP Bittersweet, and then there was a single Orchard Park, which I believe is going to be the lead up for the next album. So we're going to talk about the album, the EP,
and maybe the single. We
And
might
maybe-
mention it.
Technically, the EP is not even an EP. It's only 3 songs, so technically it's a single. It's that short.
I mean,
1 to 3 songs is a single.
Really?
4 to 6 is an EP. 7 and up is an album.
Really?
That's how it works.
That's depressing.
That's why on Apple Music you'll find singles and they'll have different songs because they'll be up to 3.
All right. Well, sure. Cool.
My theory
the more
is,
you know.
yeah, my theory is it goes back to the days when you could sell a single in a record shop.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
what's an LP then?
An LP is 7 and
long
up.
play. Is that what that stands
Oh.
for? And then an EP just stands for extended play.
I want to say 7 and up. It might be 8 and up, but I believe it's 7 and up. It's 7 and up because on Other Stars' album is 7 songs.
All right.
So we're going to look at Aaron West for one half, and then we're going to look at...
Crywank. Oh yeah.
I was going to let Quinn introduce
True.
it,
Crywank!
Crywank.
James
Which
is going
is-
to die soon.
which is a prescription by Quinn.
Yes, I'm Quinn, by the way.
Oh yeah, Quinn's here. We haven't introduced
We
Quinn.
forgot to introduce Quinn. Whoops.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, our dearest friend.
We forgot
Someone
Quinn!
I feel like Quinn is always forgotten here.
Quinn was sitting an inch from us, and we just forgot he was there. So
Wait, who are you?
Crywank.
What were you
Excuse
doing?
me while I go Crywank.
Yeah, you just look at us with tears. You're always like, Crywank.
Jesus Christ. Tears in your eyes and something in your hands. All right. Well, where do you want to start? Do you guys want to start with Aaron West or do you want to start with Crywank?
We can start with Aaron West.
I like
You wanna
starting with
start?
Aaron West. I like starting with the common one and going into the prescription.
All right, so I guess we'll start with Aaron West. Yeah, I think you were the one who introduced me to Aaron. It was either you or it was either my friend Chester from my old job.
Fair enough. I do like introducing people, and Quinn, you'll be unfamiliar with this. We're getting to a format. Usually, when we start with a common album, we'll go through and just give it's usually like an anecdote that shows how we feel about the album.
Is that what we do?
I mean, it's
Is
kind of
there-
what we do.
Is there a formula to this?
Usually when we do an overview of the album, it's not usually an introduction to the album, more of it's like our experience with the album. You know what I mean?
Okay, fair.
I
You
feel
know
like
what?
we've done
Let's play a game. Pick one word to describe your experience
Ooh,
of Aaron West.
We're
and the
changing
Roaring
it up for
20s.
this episode.
Let's have Quinn start since he's the newbie.
Oh my god, this is so difficult. One word?
One word.
Give me one good adjective.
Definitely heartbreaking. I mean,
Okay,
The
yeah.
album is called We Don't Have Each Other.
Yeah, I mean,
No, you're right.
I can't like the album as a whole. I mean, I feel like the album sort of has a happy ending. So I mean,
You might want to talk into the mics.
Also, do you think that I believe none of what you said just got picked up? Right?
No, it did. The levels are
No.
there.
So I mean,
do you think it has a happy ending?
I
Is
do-
that
I
how
do-
you view the
I
ending?
do kind of think it has a happy ending because it's not him completely getting over his father's death and like his wife leaving him and the baby dying. But I mean, it's not really. He's not really completely over. But I feel like it's him coming to terms with it.
As we will go through, as we do on every episode, we particularly thanks to me, we'll probably have a lengthy discussion about the closer. Because I really like discussing how closers work, how the stories work, so we'll get into that a lot. But I like that. That works. What about you, Rob?
Probably, like, is it weird for me to say, like, dusty?
Okay.
It has this weird ting of nostalgia to it. Like,
I like Dusty.
Entire album, and it makes me think Dusty.
One thing that I would like to say for the album that I've never been able to explain is it feels like it takes place in a different era, but it doesn't. It takes place in 2016.
I think that was the joke with the whole Roaring 20s
It is the
thing.
joke, but even when I imagine it, I don't imagine it in like a 20 setting.
Hey, Jeremy, this is a lot more than one word.
Oh, damn! I wanted to respond to your statement. That's something I'll get into in a bit because that explains how I feel about the album a bit. One word.
Give me one good adjective. Use that noodle of yours.
Yeah.
Oh my god. There's so many intense feelings about this. I guess it's something like adventure?
Adventure?
And it's a weird word to describe it, but I believe as I get into my explanation it'll make more sense.
Okay, alright, so let's hear it. Let's hear your
as a
justification.
Getting into the album, how I would describe it is Aaron West in the Roaring 20s, the album, the EP, the single, we'll refer to it probably as the album, but we'll get past the album. While comparing it to the last album would be the easiest way to do it. Mountain Goats Beat the Champ was world building. It was, we're going to attack this setting from all different directions and give you a full view of the world that we're in. Folie à Deux was adventure through songs. It took you from style to style and made you feel like you're along for the ride. And Aaron West the Roaring 20s is kind of an interesting combination of both, where you kind of go through the story, and as you go through the story, you uncover parts of the world. And that's why it feels like an adventure. You kind of follow him through, and you don't learn about every step of the way, but he picks points along the way of this adventure, discovering himself, and it's a literal adventure of him traveling to the South.
Yeah.
He starts in New York, and the album progresses as he drives in his father's car down to South Carolina.
Right.
And it feels like every town he stops in, like Thunderbird Inn, he stops in this town and then it describes this town. We only see that town because it's relevant to him in that story.
Yeah, so it's world building based on a central point. It's the devil's in the details.
It feels more like a TV show, like where like a character would like go from town to town and there'd be a story in that town, then a story in the next town. It feels like that kind of adventure.
So would you watch an Aaron West and the Roaring 20s sitcom?
I wasn't ready for the word sitcom. The word sitcom threw me completely off. I was like, I would watch an Aaron West and Roy sitcom, huh?
Sitcom.
I mean, I don't see where the laughs would come from.
It's dark humor.
I would love the idea of Aaron. I love the idea of like Aaron West like being there, like my wife's still gone, and then there's a laugh track.
I could see where the fun, like the one line Thunderbird Inn where the homeless man comes up to him
Super
and just and Aaron West just looks back at him and he's sad.
Yeah. The line is
the very dark humor right there.
Outside, a homeless man looks me in the right in the eye.
Asked me for change in eye. I looked him right straight in his eye. He started to apologize.
Yeah, it's like he apologized.
He's like, I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I asked you something. It's
God bless you, but goodbye. You're obviously way worse off than I am.
The album feels intimate, but in a very different way than when we get into Crywank. It's a very different kind of intimate, where it's not intimate in the sense of you feel like you're in the room with him. It's intimate as in you feel like you're living the life along with him.
Yeah,
you feel like you're experiencing things as he experiences them, and that's a huge part of the album.
Quinn, I want to hear what your take on Aaron West, because Jeremy really likes to go in depth on his take on artists, but like
I'm giving myself a break right now.
Yeah,
you go, Quinn.
Let's hear it, Quinn.
So what do you mean? How
do you feel about the album?
Yeah.
So I mean, I did like your description of how you're not sitting in the room with him, such as with Crywank. I feel that. I feel like for Crywank, I feel like I'm sitting on his bed listening to him play guitar.
Oh yeah, when we get into Crywank, that's a huge feeling.
Yeah,
that album
but for Aaron West, I feel like what I felt like I was in the car. I felt like it was like early morning, driving. Just driving south, and these songs are playing on the radio while he's telling me his story.
Okay.
That's sort of how I sort of took it.
So it's more of like a backtrack to what's happening to him.
Yeah, and
interesting.
I like that perspective, and I see why you think it differs so much from Crywank, because I think Crywank James is going to die soon is almost like even though the character Aaron West, which should be made up, even though he's the one singing the songs.
I love how you told us a fact earlier, which was, Dan doesn't like being called Soupy, which was in the recorded version, the unrecorded version of the CP, and then continued to be the only one to call him just Soupy.
Listen, all right.
Listen, my good friend Soupy.
My bud Soupy. But Dan created Aaron West, and Aaron West is the author and like the narrator for this entire album. But it almost feels like it's a play. It almost feels like there's a screen there.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas when you listen to Crywank, which we'll go into later on, it's more like you're actually like listening to him talk about his life.
Aaron West kind of feels like a musical, or doesn't feel like a musical in the way that, like, in musicals it feels like everyone's like bursting out in song. But whenever Aaron West is singing, even though you feel like you're living it with him, it doesn't feel like he's singing in that moment. It feels like he's singing about his experience, and you're reliving that experience.
Yeah, it's reflexive.
It's reflexive.
I don't know if either of you have seen the movie, but it reminds me a lot of the Coen Brothers' Inside Llewyn Davis movie.
I love the Coen Brothers, and I don't know that one.
It's just a movie about a guy playing an acoustic guitar, folk music, and just basically traveling not traveling around the country, but just trying to make money, really. And I mean, it reminds me a lot of that because it has this sense of adventure. Just you really feel for the artist, and I mean, even though the story's made up, I mean, it's relatable in. I mean, your wife has never divorced you. I mean,
but everybody's felt heartbreak.
Yeah,
everyone's felt loss.
Every song feels like it has so much passion in it, and I mean, this album just sort of gives off this feeling of. I like how you said nostalgia.
I really like that too.
Yeah,
Bob said that. That's the feeling of dusty. I would like to get into because I see that with it.
I mean, I do like that, but what I feel more than anything is just sadness, and I mean, for a majority of the album, except for I think the final song, I mean, you just feel intense sadness, and you just feel for this character that Soupy created.
I get a slightly different feeling because I feel like you're correct in how there's a lot of themes, and I feel, in my opinion, is the way he makes them relatable is he wraps them all in a bundle of running away. Yeah. The entire album is encapsulated by him running away from his problems, but those problems are dived into so personally, but they're presented in this very broad way of I'm just going to run, and you get that like I get scared with like oh my god. It's my favorite song on the album. I'll run and scared, where it's just like I gotta leave. I cannot be here anymore. And the entire other album is him like dealing with that decision to run and how it affects his life. And it's fascinating because the entire album comes down to what do you do when you run?
Yeah,
like where do you go?
Not only that, what is he running away from?
What's
That's another thing he fights
from?
with a lot in the album. Is like trying to figure out why is he running? Like, what is the driving force that's making him? Is it the fact that everything is different, that the things that were once familiar to him, his father, his wife, they're all gone, and suddenly he's in this position that he's always been in his whole life, but now everything's totally different, and he feels like he needs just this other change in scenery? Or is he running after something? Is he running after his lost love, his lost relationships? It's depressing as fuck.
It's very depressing, and you feel it very heavily, because you always feel that urge to run, like when something gets too difficult, and you're kind of like watching this person live that out, and it's not glorious, but I wouldn't say it's a disaster. He learns things about himself during the adventure. It feels like it's a worthwhile adventure. By the end of it, you feel like he's learned things. He's gotten what he needed to get out of it. And, I mean, yeah.
I think it's kind of a disaster.
What I sort of feel
it's a bad experience.
What I've always thought about, and I mean, I never really looked too much into, was, I mean, I feel like this album just sort of sticks with, or sort of clings to the 7 stages of grief.
There's a lot of that.
For the first song, I mean, I've got 7 stages right here.
I would say quickly,
we
should go into exactly what the album's about, like just a quick synopsis, so so listeners are not super confused when he's like, why would he be so sad?
Aaron's dad died, and then his wife had a miscarriage, and then they divorced, and now he's depressed as shit.
Wait, sorry. let me just say that. Let me rephrase that in one way.
Depressed as shit.
No. So Aaron's dad died, his wife left him, and his wife had a miscarriage, and then we get on to song 4.
What happened in song 4?
No, I'm saying all that happens in the first 3 songs.
Yeah. Right.
All this goes down. And song 4 hits, song 3 hits, I guess, where you learn a bit more about his dad, and he basically goes to his mom, and his mom says, take your dead dad's car that's still in the driveway, and just run. Take the car and run. And that's like, it repeats that like 8 times. Fantastic storytelling. But,
yeah, I love St. Joe Keeps Us Safe. That's a great song.
And then he basically just leaves, and he spends the rest of the album, like, from song 4 to 9, just going down the coast.
So enlighten us, Quinn. How quickly does Aaron go through the 7 stages of grief?
Yes, please.
I mean, I see in our apartment that's where it sort of starts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's for sure. Because you have shock, and I mean, initial paralysis at hearing the bad news, and you really hear that in the line where you turn the washing machine on and let the water run cold, and you just imagine him sitting in the shower and just like in shock.
No, yeah, he's talking about like reading over the note that she left when she said she was going to leave him, and just like hoping that in some way he'll find something in that letter that will change what happened. He's in total shock and disbelief at the events that just transpired.
Yeah, and then you got like, then you have denial, which I mean, I guess you could chalk that up with, grapefruit and St. Joe's keeps us safe.
Yeah, I mean, St. Joe not as much, because I think that's when he starts like confronting the grief a little more, because that's when he like, because he even says when he's talking to his mom in St. Joe Keeps Us Safe, his mom's like, what is it? I knew something was wrong. Boy, you ain't come here in too long. Like, this is the point where he's been dealing with the grief. He's been denying it and suppressing it up until St. Joe Keeps Us Safe.
And I would say Run and Scare's the epitome of that. He's like, I have to deal with this. And she's like, then just do what you have to. And he's like, I gotta go. And she's like, do it, run, leave, do whatever you have to get better. And it's a beautiful moment. It leads into the rest of the album.
And then you hit anger and bargaining, which, I mean, anger,
what do you mean
so
anger?
Much...
Oh, in the States. I thought you meant the song. I'm like, what?
No. I mean, in Thunderbird Inn, you see so much anger.
Yeah, no, for sure. Is he dealing with his aggression through alcohol? That's that's his crux.
Also,
and then...
No, keep going.
Yeah, bargaining, get me out of here alive, you ain't no saint, that's just more anger.
There's direct reference to bargaining in, what's that one song off of the EP, 67 Cherry Red?
Oh, 67 Cherry... Oh, yeah. 67 Cherry Red's the first song off the Bittersweet EP. Which
right. He's literally trying to, like, sell enough shit to make his way back home.
Oh, yeah, he's talking about the fact that he... I would like to get through this album before we get to there.
Okay,
the story
that was just a quick jump.
And then you're right. He goes through like all these things, and he kind of deals with his past by dealing with these emotions. Like, "Get Me Out of Here Alive" is him. What emotion did you pick for that one?
Which one?
"Get Me Out of Here Alive."
I thought that was bargaining.
Bargaining, and it's kind of him looking at the world and looking at his own childhood. And this is the one where he really evaluates his religious implications of how he was raised, or at least this character was raised. And it's beautiful because it's him exploring new possibilities by dealing with his past. And it's such good storytelling at how it like incorporates very few major events take place in this album. Besides him running, the dad dying, the divorce happens theoretically like right before the first line of the song, or the first line of the album. All of it takes place before, and the album kind of consists of him dealing with these like stages by looking at his past. And I think that's very beautiful.
Yeah, alright.
Yeah. If you guys want to get to the end of the album...
Yeah, okay.
Right, so what are the last couple tracks on
the last 2 songs are You Ain't No Saint and Carolina Coast.
And then Going to Georgia.
Going to Georgia is a bonus track. It is a cover of a Mountain Goat song.
It is a bonus track.
It is.
I didn't know it was a bonus track.
It is, yeah.
I mean, it fits very well.
Apparently no one listed it as a bonus track, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, right, because it's a great cover of a great song.
It's a great cover of a great song.
When he played that song live, that was cool.
So, You Ain't No Saint, I believe, deserves unique recognition, not only because I believe it's the best song on the album, but because you spend a full album, the album starts with, oh my god, the first line's like, your sister told me it's over.
No, the first line of the album is I pictured our apartment.
Pictured our apartment, sorry. You get through that, and he's like, he goes through this like vivid imagination. And then he goes, I had lunch with your sister, she told me it's over.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where the album really starts. And so like one of the first lines is all about his wife and how she left. And then throughout the album, you have songs like Divorce in the American South, where he's literally calling her on a phone, and she won't answer.
Yeah.
And throughout all of this, the entire album, you learn next to nothing about her. You learn a lot about the relationship, a lot how it fell apart. In Grapefruit, you learn how she thought bringing a family together would help him get through this, but it didn't, and she couldn't handle it. But you learn nothing about her. And You Ain't No Saint is a song fully focused on her character and bringing it to life. And I love it as a penultimate song.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
I feel like it brings the story together so well,
mm-hmm.
and I just really enjoyed it there.
It's good that he didn't neglect, like, fleshing out a character for the wife of Aaron, too. Because, also, do we ever get a name for her?
Diane.
Diane, yeah, right, Diane.
Diane, when you pick up the phone, I know that you're listening. I know that you're home.
Yes, right. And it's good because, like, especially in this scene and in the male-dominated, like, music industry, like, you usually don't get a lot of like well-rounded female characters.
Yeah, it's interesting that Diane is never portrayed as a villain.
No.
She is portrayed as...
She's portrayed as misguided and confused, which is normal for someone in their, 20s and 30s dealing with...
Honestly, it just seems like she's... Not that Aaron isn't upset about the miscarriage. Of course he's upset about it, but I feel like that he's more upset about the fact that she left than the fact that his dad died. And he's not focusing on that, but her entire, arc, I guess, is just her being upset about
really have an arc.
Yeah.
She's not in the story.
Yeah. It's not even... she doesn't have an arc, but it's not just about the miscarriage. It's also about the way that Aaron handled the miscarriage.
Yeah.
He even says... I think it's in... which song is
If you say the line, I'll probably know what song.
It's just when we lost the baby.
I kind of shut off.
Aaron did not handle... Grapefruit. Aaron did not handle the miscarriage well, and that affected their relationship negatively because she's the one lost the fucking baby.
It feels like Aaron sees her as the villain, or at least not as the villain, but Aaron sees her as an antithesis to him. Aaron sees her as, she broke this off, she messed this up, I can't believe she did this, why did she do this? But it doesn't feel like the album is presenting her as such. The album presents her as someone who was confused and lost, just as he was. And it makes sense that she would make these irrational decisions just as he would.
They're perfect for each other. They're both destructive. They're both self-destructive and
I don't know
flawed.
if they're perfect for each other, but they're both very similar characters. And I think this, You Ain't No Saint kind of shows these stark similarities between them. It goes through how they met in their childhood and saying we acted the same way, we were kind of the same person. And it really brings that all together that they're both damaged. This story might have been about Aaron, but there is a story about Diane in here and how she had to deal with all this.
I feel like we're just seeing a very one-sided story. I think
it's supposed to be. I think that's by design.
No, that's fair.
Aaron's story.
This is sort of it is Aaron's story, but I think we're meant to not know much about Diane at all.
Absolutely.
Because it was never about just her. It was about Aaron and his position in life, and
it was about how he dealt with this.
Although on the surface we're supposed to feel for Aaron, I feel like Aaron kind of... so when we lost the baby, I kind of shut off. It's those small little tidbits where you say Aaron kind of screwed himself over.
He literally says, "I fucked up" in one line. When he's calling her on a payphone, he says, "Look, I fucked up."
I fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, exactly. As he deals with the grief.
Oh my god! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Do you want to know what the line after that is? It's just when we lost the baby, I kind of shut off. That is from Divorce in the
American South.
In the American South, not Grapefruit. My bad.
It's okay. That's fine. Good protection. Correction. But anyway, as he goes through the stages of grief and as he learns to accept it, he also realizes his own faults, which is what caused the essential breakdown.
And then we get to Carolina Coast, which is the closer of We Don't Have Each Other. And is a closer I'm conflicted on. Because as a closer to the album, I think it's almost perfect. It includes a moment that is beautiful when he sees that ship, and it kind of puts the whole story in perspective. It wraps it up with a bow, and then he ends it with, "I'm not going home tonight without Diane by my side." And he's saying, this is where I make my stand. I can't live without her. And in the context of the album, I really like it, because it shows that he, in the end, after imagining everything without him, and especially after You Ain't No Saint, where he looked at that relationship, he decided, this relationship is necessary to me. But then when you get to the next EP, Bittersweet EP, it's all about letting her go.
Right.
And it feels kind of contradictory to Carolina Coast.
I think you have to deal with the absolute desire for something before you can kind of let it go. That's it's the last hurdle before, if you truly love something, let it go.
And it kind of makes sense, because it's literally him on a beach in South Carolina screaming at the top of his lungs, "I'm not coming home." Yeah. And that is kind of the last cathartic moment. But just from pure storytelling perspectives, it drives me angry that the end of a story contradicts the beginning of the next story. It feels kind of jarring when I'm listening to them in order.
It's hard to put in a lot of character development from an EP.
No, you're right.
I'm curious to see if he's just going to continue Aaron West's
He at least has another album in him.
Yeah, so
you're
just the way the first album
curious.
went, I couldn't.
You don't know
if
how
I'm just
it's gonna
speculating,
end.
no, I can totally see. By the way that this album went, that the relationship between Diane and Aaron isn't completely over.
Have you listened to Bittersweet EP?
I listened to 2 songs.
So Bittersweet EP starts with 67 Cherry Red, which is him basically going back home. He scrapes together enough money and he heads home. The second song on the album, he basically goes to New York and he goes to their old apartment. And then in the third song, he walks up to their old apartment, found that she changed everything, and basically lets go. The end of the Bittersweet EP is him letting go of her, at least in a metaphorical sense. It is one of the most intense lyrical moments I have ever listened to on record.
You think so?
The end of South Like the G? Green Like the G Train, Green Like Seafoam. That is the name of the song. The end of that song. And then we get a song called Orchard Park that was released a few weeks ago. That's just about burying his dad. And it's just kind of somber, and it kind of...
So then that makes you wonder, what direction will he go in for album 2, if he puts out an album 2?
It makes me think, because the singles for the first album was You Ain't No Saint and Divorcing the American South, which kind of pointed towards this album. That album would be about his relationship with Diane. Yeah. Those are two songs that focus very heavily on it.
Doesn't even focus on his dad at all.
In the singles, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
So,
at the end of You Ain't No Saint, a little bit, but besides that, mostly on women. So, is this album going to be mainly focused on getting over his dad and reconnecting with his mom? That would make sense because he's back in New York and Diane's not there.
What if it's an album about Diane? What if...
Ooh.
Yeah.
From Diane's perspective.
From Diane's
sung
perspective.
by a man.
I remember a few years ago.
Interesting.
I remember a few years ago, somebody on Bandcamp released like a Diane and the Holy Ghost, and it was an EP from Diane's perspective. It wasn't great.
Oh, I was going to say that sounds really
style.
It's a fun idea.
Yeah.
It was a fun idea, like looking at things from Diane's perspective, and I would love to. Especially with his mom, he mentions her in Orchard Park. I would love to see further characterization of her, and especially looking into how that religious upbringing works through the perspective of talking to his mom. I would love to see.
There's so many religious themes in this album.
They're all over the place.
Yeah. I don't know why, but like St. Joe Keeps Us Safe hits me really close to home. Maybe because I grew up in like a kind of Roman Catholic household, so that like imagery of like pictures of saints and crucifixes around the house and like all these weird little traditions and rituals that a family would do to like keep themselves holy or whatever. It's just like, wow, that paints a very... That's where the nostalgia, that's where the dustiness comes in.
And I feel like we're winding down the discussion, so I'd like to throw out one of my favorite things about this album, which is I once listened to an interview about how he wrote that song, St. Joe Keeps Us Safe. And he basically, how he wrote it was, have you ever seen the movie Her?
No.
The movie Her is a movie about, it's an incredible movie.
Fall in Love with a Computer.
It's featuring Walking Phoenix.
Oh, that movie.
And it's not about falling in love with a computer, it's about falling in love with an AI.
Yeah, right, the AI.
And it's a universal AI, so it falls in love with multiple. It's a crazy movie. Everybody should watch it. But basically, he said he got the idea from that movie because when the AI meets the main character in that movie, she only asks him 2 questions to form their entire personality around him. And one of those questions is, what was your relationship like with your mother? And basically, he said that question informed that entire song. He said, I'm not going to look at Aaron through who Aaron is. I'm going to look at Aaron through who his mom is. And I'm going to look at his mom, how she lives, how she takes care, all her religious upbringing, and how that would affect Aaron. And then the listener will be able to put together how that would affect him and why Aaron is the way he is. And I think that song does that expertly.
True.
You really understand Aaron because you get to know his mother.
Okay, I think that's a good point to wrap up Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, do you think? Or unless you got anything else to say? Any final thoughts?
Great album.
Great album.
Absolutely amazing album, EP single. You should listen to all of it. Also, it's a heartbreaking experience.
This album is one of the very few, I'm going to talk a little bit more about James Gunn's Dyson, but if you pick up this album, there are a couple songs that I can just listen to. Like Our Apartment I could just listen to, Thunderbird Inn I could just listen to, and I guess You Ain't No Saint. But everything else, I feel like this album has to be listened to as a whole.
Oh,
it's a concept album.
It's not only a concept; it's a literal story.
Yeah. And I mean,
although it's a concept.
Although every song in this I think is great. Yeah, I can't just pick it up and listen to it without listening to the songs around.
It is an experience.
Yeah.
I would say listening to this album, you don't. Besides songs like Maybe You Ain't No Saint, which I think can stand alone, which explains why they're released as singles, most of these songs only make sense in context of the album, and they lose a lot of their emotion when they're played outside the album.
True.
Okay, and that'll finish our discussion for Aaron West
Wait,
and the Roaring
I have
Twenties.
one more thing to say.
Go, Rob!
Very clutch banjo playing in Aaron West.
Very clutch banjo.
Oh, do you know who plays that?
Who?
Ace Enders. He plays all the instruments besides like guitar and drums.
No way! Really?
He plays. I believe he plays.
Ace Enders plays banjo?
I believe he plays the banjo, all the trumpets, all the horns.
Remind me to show you the early November later.
If I remember correctly.
And you will be like, this guy plays banjo? Anyway.
I believe he not only plays banjo, I believe he plays banjo in the music video.
Wow. Good on you. Ace
Yeah,
Enders.
I'm like 70% sure he plays in the music video. He's the of our apartment. He's playing a banjo.
Incredible. Alrighty. Well.
Okay, moving on to our next album. Quinn, would you like to introduce this one since this was your prescription?
You know what? Crywank.
What if you're just like, no?
No, I'm not feeling.
You know what?
I don't want to do
No.
this album anymore.
You just walk out. You're like, you talk about it.
But Crywank, I decided to just randomly go on Spotify and listen to my suggested artists.
Interesting.
And Crywank really appealed to me just because I love the name. I love the band name. I fell in love with it. It's got that vulgar.
I'm sorry. Do you
Crywanks.
remember last
Yeah.
week when we said it's funny that the only thing a potential listener would know about Quinn is that he likes the band Crywank?
Crywank.
Imagine they're surprised when the first thing he says about Crywank is, "I just love the name."
I mean, I think the name's got just the right amount of vulgar and just I don't know. It just really appeals to me, and it's got a shock value.
I really hope you spend the next 20 minutes talking about the name.
A very pivotal question. Why no space between cry and wank?
Because you do it at once, man.
Ask and answer.
Yeah, it's multitasking, man. You don't have time to cry, then wank.
Yeah. James Is Going to Die Soon is an album that, like I said, it feels like you're sitting on the bed and with him while he's playing guitar. And
is that just because of the tone? Is that just because
it's because
I think it's everything.
The way the audio was recorded, the way because the audio and the vocals and the instrumental was not recorded separately.
Right, they were tracked on the same.
Yeah,
when I listen to the album, I feel like I'm in a room in a cabin in the middle of the woods during winter with him, literally listening to him spout for an hour or 22 minutes. It's a very short album, 22 minutes. It feels like he's just. The thing is, this album, it kind of just feels like you're sitting with a guy and he's just kind of venting to you for 22 minutes. A lot of it doesn't feel very polished. It feels like it's a lot of off the cuff, this person annoyed me and this person this. It's nothing about it's very specific.
So you think it's kind of raw? It's kind of unedited almost,
the
unfiltered?
lyrics feel kind of.
Rob, me and Rob were listening to this, and he brought up a good point that it sounds like every song sort of not sounds the same, but has the same sort of chords and
Absolutely,
and
the album blends together.
But I think that sort
it really
of
adds to the feeling.
So it does sound like he's venting to you, and I feel like these are just lyrics he has written down on the page, and he's just playing.
He's playing through them one by one in a row.
Yeah, just playing chords and just cutting them off and
so sort of a stream of consciousness.
Yeah,
but for the entire album.
And
no, that's exactly how I would describe it.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's how the album was recorded.
And the thing is, there's a lot of fun things about that. You really feel like you're there with him. You really feel like it's intimate. But there's a real backside to that, which is one of the first things I thought of how to compare this when I was listening to it is it feels like if you took Sorority Noise and took out all the personal anecdotes. Yep. And Sorority Noise without the personal anecdotes would kind of fall flat.
Yeah.
And it falls flat in a similar way that I think this album starts to in certain places where
that's right.
It kind of feels like he's saying in one song, I think in the second song, he says, this is not even relevant to one specific person. And it makes me think that maybe this broadness in a lot of the lyrics and a lot of lack of personal stories and a lot of lack of insane imagery is intentional, but it doesn't change the fact that it still feels like it's missing.
I feel like every other song sort of has the general feel and then it has this specific feel. I mean, when you listen to the first song, I got the lyrics right here. It's do you love him yet? Do you think it will last? Were you wearing the pants I bought you? Do you ever think he resembled me in some way? A boy left the break.
That's the thing. The lyrics feel intimate and they feel good, but they don't feel personal.
You don't think so?
No, I think they feel intimate, as in you can feel he really means them. But at the same time, you don't feel like you understand why he feels them. With Sorority Noise, it feels like on throw a quick example like No Halo.
Yeah.
No Halo is a very intimate song, and you feel like you get he talks about Lily going to this guy's house, looking in the window, thinking he saw someone, then realize, oh, that guy's been dead, committed suicide. And you get this emotion of the story feels like it's showcasing his emotion.
Okay.
And I just don't get that feeling on
That's
this
why
album.
I feel like this album sort of has like more of a modern poetry feel to it. As like that's why you say it just sounds like him venting. And I mean, if you write poetry, you just write whatever you're feeling. It doesn't have to be specific. It can be general. It can be incredibly specific. But you know, it has this feel of like, okay, this guy obviously has something on his mind, and he's obviously trying to get something off his chest. But you're right. It's not polished. It's not organized. So,
but that's not a bad thing. And
no.
If anything, the lack of polish and like the sort of
it has
uneditedness,
raw feel to it.
It adds to like the emotional charge of the album, and it fits it. It not only does it fit the like theme of the album, it also fits it musically. Like you're right.
Musically.
No Halo is very specific and it paints a very vivid picture, but Kevin Boucher is also the type of artist who knows every note of every mode of every like transition for all of his songs. The dude studied at UHart. He was a master musician. But Crywank, this is just some dude on his bed like dealing with personal issues, playing an acoustic guitar, and that's all he's got to work with is these raw sort of unfiltered, unprocessed emotions and 6 strings. And I think it works well as a sort of overarching feel.
But the problem I have with this album is, like I said, you have to listen to Aaron West as a whole. This album, if I listen to it as a whole, I kind of get annoyed by it.
Yeah.
This album, I don't feel that way. I feel it's a minute short enough to reach that. Like, I feel like if it was even a minute longer, I would get so bored.
If
just the droning on a bit.
Right.
Thank God it's only 22 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a very good decision to make it a short album. Because, like, listening to your friend vent is fun, especially when they have interesting things to say. Yeah. Listening to your friend vent for an hour is a frustrating experience.
It's a test of patience.
With this album, I feel like you could pick any song, and I feel like it's amazing. But when you listen to them together, it just sort of drags on.
Blend.
And that's a good way of putting it when you're like listening to someone vent.
That's interesting. I didn't think of listening to it not together. I feel like that might have changed my opinion on the album, because again, a lot of it is, I feel like I listened to the album, and when Aaron West and Mountain Goats feel like an experience, they feel like I lived through it. This just feels like I'm getting up and leaving the room. It feels like I didn't live through anything. It feels like I just listened to this guy, and it's not a bad feeling. It's not like I hate it. It's awful. It's just like, I listened to an album. It doesn't feel like it really affected me that heavily. It felt like it was a kind of interesting album. And I leave. And I didn't think, like, if I listened to the songs individually, how I might view them differently.
Yeah, right.
That's interesting. I didn't think of that.
No, but I mean, the separate songs in here, I mean, I like your idea of sitting in a cabin with him in the winter. I mean, what I figured is that these were lyrics written by him a long time ago.
I can see that.
And I'm sitting down on his bed. He's got the room covered in. For some reason, I just think of blankets covering the windows and just like him playing to me all these things that he wrote down once that he doesn't feel anymore, but playing them and talking about them, he sort of relives what he once felt. And that's why the lyrics, I think, don't feel so incredibly personal, but they feel like they have some substance to them.
They feel like they matter to him. It just feels like he's forgetting to explain why.
Yes.
And it kind of, just that kind of lack. It's like, I like this because it feels emotional, but
it feels directionless.
It feels very directionless.
Yeah. But no sort of, he has these problems, sure. We don't know exactly what they are, and he's not trying to solve them in any way.
Yeah.
He's just talking about them.
Yeah.
He's just, it's a vent album.
There is one exception to that I would like to bring up, because there's one song I very much like that I feel kind of breaks the mold, and that is Harvey Milk, Shit on the Table. Harvey Milk, Shit on the Table?
Great song title.
Is a fun song title. I also think it's interesting because it kind of stylistically changes. It's a more, like, open acoustic guitar. It doesn't feel as, like, it's the one song that doesn't really feel like I'm in this dark cabin. It feels like a mid-morning day.
I feel like this is and honestly one of the more polished songs. One
of the more polished. And lyrically, there's a line like, "Did I make it easy enough to like leave me or something?" And
did I make it too easy to hurt me?
Did I make it too easy to hurt me? And the way he sings in the song, it hits and it defies. Whereas a lot of his other songs feel incomplete or directionless. This song feels like that's where it was headed, to that line, and that line ties the song together. And it feels complete. And I like that. And that, I think, is very indicative of what he could do. When, on the flip side, there is another song, I want to say An Intimate Message. It kind of starts with just a bunch of imagery of like snow, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere. He kind of just gives imagery of snow, and then the song ends, and you never really feel like it had a direction.
I mean, if that's the song, then I can definitely hear it.
I do see where that imagery you're thinking of.
Damn, I'm trying to think, because it ends with like, one of the last lines of the song is like, I didn't know what irony meant. I know the song, but it just kind of feels very directionless. Like, it reminds me of a Jeff Rosenstock song that is very similar imagery, all about snow, but it ends with this moment where you go, oh, the story made sense, it all comes together, it all makes sense. And this song just kind of leaves you like,
this album,
what was the point of that?
I think that's the whole album.
And the one thing I want to stress is I don't hate it by any stretch of the imagination.
Right,
it's a fine listen.
It's
just nothing. I would not call it spectacular. I wouldn't call it something that really. It doesn't feel like an experience like a lot of the other albums.
I feel like it's very emotional, but not polished emotional.
I think it could make a good early concept album.
As an early album, I think it's good.
That'd be cool.
But I mean, it's not a long album, and I feel like
22 minutes
is the you're right. It's the perfect amount.
Oh, it could not be longer.
I guess 22-minute Crywank is just the right amount.
You know what? Maybe that's what he intended.
Yeah, let's talk about optimal Crywank lengths, guys.
More than that, you're just beating up.
Also, I was
dead horse.
Kind of disappointed when I heard the name Crywank. I was expecting either it was going to be a really, really, really dark emotional album, which thank God it wasn't. That would be a nightmare. Or it was going to be something that was super tongue-in-cheek. Like, look, my problems are so hilariously emo, and I didn't get that. And I was kind of hoping I'd get a little
Were you
of that.
hoping for, like, the Bowling for Soup of
No.
bands?
I was hoping for, like, the Sorority Noise art school wannabe kind of style of emo, where it's like, look, I'm emo trash. With a name like Crywank, I kind of, like, thought that might be where it was going. But it was just an intimate emo album. That's really what
I guess that's the one word, to describe this album. And it really does feel intimate.
That's the thing where, despite all its failures, it succeeds on feeling intimate tenfold.
Yeah. I mean, you really, like, as opposed to, like with Aaron West, you're sitting there, like, you're sitting there in a,
Aaron West,
it doesn't feel as intimate as this. That feels like you could read a book and you could get the same feeling as you do from Aaron West. But with this, you'd have to be sitting in a room.
That's because Aaron West is a story, whereas James is Gonna Die Soon is just stream of consciousness.
Yeah, you feel like you're traveling with Aaron. You're going through the motions with Aaron. With Crywank, you kind of just feel like you're in the room listening.
Yeah, Aaron West is a road trip with, like, planned routes and, like, a playlist that was structured for the exact length of the trip. And then James is Gonna Die Soon.
Sounds like
this kid called you up and was like, I really need to complain about my ex-girlfriend, so you hotbox your car in the middle of the parking lot.
Funny name, yeah.
Oh my God, yes. With that fantastic, like, conclusion, that'll do it for another episode of Emo Trash. Next week is your prescription.
Oh shit, yeah, right.
We didn't even decide a common album.
I think, what's your prescription,
Okay, yeah, do your prescription.
My prescription is actually going to be the album GN by Rat Boys. It's their new album. It's really beautiful. They toured with Diet Sig and Sports. I saw them play and open for Diet Sig at the Bowery, and I'm just like, I'm actually wearing their shirt right now. It's got two little rat dudes with, like, cool tattoos. Oh yeah, Quinn, what's our common album?
Our common album is Rose, EP by the Front Bottoms. Fantastic.
So it's not a common album, it's a common EP. Nonetheless, it's something we can talk about.
You, Jeremy.
And what's the prescription? I'm the one who said album. I was effing myself. Until next week, we'll see you in the trash.